10 wins, 13 losses, and a feeling that doesn't match what this team was supposed to be. Because when you look at this start from the Toronto Blue Jays, it's not just the record. It's the way it looks. It's how games slip away. It's how leads disappear. It's how the ending never really feels under control. And then the question shows up, unavoidable. Is the bullpen already the problem? Again, because there's a name starting to carry more weight than it should. Jeff Hoffman, a 7.59 ERA in 12 appearances. That's not a small sample. That's not isolated bad luck. That's a pattern. And this is where the conversation starts to get uncomfortable. Because the bullpen, on paper, isn't a total disaster. There are usable pieces, arms that can get innings. But the closing, the moment when the game needs to die, that's where it's leaking. Again, now hold that for a second. Because there's a detail here that shifts the entire direction of this conversation. The market is already moving. And when the market moves early, it's because someone inside has already smelled the problem before it turns into a crisis. The name that surfaced? Trevor Medel. And it's not just a random name thrown out there. It's not empty noise. It's the kind of move that makes sense until it makes you question everything. Medel is coming off an all-star season. That's not small. That puts him in a different tier of expectation, a different level of pressure, a different kind of value. But his start to 2026 hasn't matched that status. He's been inconsistent, lost some command, and when a closer loses consistency, his value drops faster than almost any other role. Because confidence in that job is everything. And that's where the Milwaukee Brewers come in. A team that has shown multiple times they don't get emotionally attached. If they need to move a key piece to keep the competitive cycle going, they do it. They've done it with big names. They've reshaped the core. They've retooled without fully rebuilding. It's almost a philosophy. And that puts Medel in a dangerous spot. Because he doesn't need to be bad to get traded. He just needs to be available. And that's where the fit with Toronto shows up. Because the Blue Jays can't wait for this problem to grow. Last year, everyone remembers how it ended. An unstable bullpen, games slipping in the margins, small issues turning into something bigger. And nobody in that building wants to relive that. But this is where things start to get complicated. Trading for a closer who's also struggling. Does that solve the problem? Or just move the problem somewhere else? Because Medel doesn't arrive as certainty. He arrives as a bet with a strong track record, but a shaky present. And baseball doesn't forgive bad bets when you're trying to win now. Now think about this. Why go after Medel anyway? Because his ceiling is still higher than what the team currently has to close games. Simple as that. And in a bullpen, ceiling matters more than average. You don't need him to be steady in every appearance. You need him to be dominant when the game demands it. And Medel, when he's right, is exactly that. But there's a cost. And it's not small. The proposal on the table includes two names, Yohendrick Pinango and Sean Keys. And this is where the tone shifts. Because we're not talking about filler. We're not talking about disposable pieces. Pinango is producing a .275 average, .359 OBP, .464 slugging, with real impact at the plate. That's not empty hype. That's real production. And Keys, a .347 average, a .467 OBP, a .776 slugging, 6 home runs in 13 games. That's not normal. That gets attention from every front office. That accelerates promotions. That raises market value. That brings other teams into the conversation. Now stop for a second, because this is the question that actually matters. Is it worth giving up 2 hot prospects for a closer in an unstable moment? Because there is no comfortable answer here. If Medel returns to all-star form, the price looks light. If he stays inconsistent, you just gave up offensive depth for another bullpen problem. And the farm system isn't endless. And there's another layer here that almost nobody talks about, the emotional impact. Because the Blue Jays fan base is already on edge. The expectations after a strong season don't match a slow start. And when the team is being outscored by more than 20 runs this early, people notice. It becomes radio talk, podcast debate, pressure. And pressure changes decisions. Sometimes it accelerates moves that should wait. Sometimes it forces bets that weren't part of the original plan. And that's where the invisible risk shows up. Because this trade isn't just technical. It's psychological. It's a response. A message that the team isn't going to sit still. But what if the problem isn't exactly the closer? What if it's the whole structure? Because the starters outside of Dylan Cease and Kevin Gausman have also been inconsistent. That puts more strain on the bullpen. That creates high-leverage innings earlier. That exposes any weakness. So you can change the name in the 9th inning. But if the 6th and 7th are still unstable, the impact is limited. And now you start to see the full picture. This trade doesn't fix everything. It tries to fix the most visible symptom. And sometimes that's enough to stabilize things. Sometimes it's not. Now from the Brewers' side, does it make sense? It does. because they turn a volatile asset into two prospects trending upward. They strengthen the future without fully sacrificing the present. They stick to their pattern. Cold, calculated, efficient, and historically, that works for them. But here's the interesting inversion. The team under more pressure is the one taking the bigger risk. Toronto needs to be right. Milwaukee can afford to wait. And when that gap exists, the side without urgency usually negotiates better. So the question comes back, heavier now. Is Toronto being proactive or reacting too fast? Because there's a fine line between anticipation and anxiety. And that line defines a season. On paper, the trade makes sense. The bullpen needs a higher ceiling. Medel offers that. The prospects have value, but they don't help right now. But baseball is never just on paper. It's timing, it's rhythm, it's adjustment. And Medel walking into a high-pressure environment with a fan base demanding immediate results that can accelerate a comeback or deepen the problem. There's no middle ground. Now, imagine the impact if it works. You stabilize the ninth inning. You reduce the strain on the rest of the bullpen. You change the narrative from unstable team to a team that fixed itself. But if it fails, you lose future assets. You keep the problem, and you add another layer of frustration. And then it's not just about the bullpen anymore. It becomes a question of management, of direction, of how the season is being read. And that carries more weight than any ERA. So in the end, this potential trade isn't really about Trevor Medel. It's about how much the Toronto Blue Jays believe they still control their season. If they do, they make the move with conviction. If they don't, any mistake becomes an avalanche. Now I want to hear from you. Do you give up two hot prospects for bullpen bet right now? Or do you hold and risk watching this problem grow again? Because one choice is coming. And when it does, there won't be any pretending it was a surprise.